So here's why you're struggling with emotional eating even after doing so many different things. So maybe you've gone to therapy, you understand your triggers, you're not new to this pattern. Maybe you've tried intuitive eating, you've done the work, and you're still frustrated. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. I've had women come to me who have tried everything to help their emotional eating, from actual emotional eating programs to other methods like therapy, intuitive eating, different diets, personal training. They have done psychedelics, they have done trauma therapy, and they're trying to put all these pieces together to help them. And so what I find time and time again, that all the layers of emotional eating aren't addressed. And even if you've tried some of the things and it's lessened your emotional eating, in order to fully resolve this pattern, you need all things working together. And you can't keep piecemealing it. And that's why when I'm working with women, we are working on all of the different levels to help them resolve their emotional eating. Even if you've done work around food or your body or somatics, it's all combined to help you really get to that root and to really see your pattern, because it's multi-layered. You can't keep adding in pieces without seeing how they all fit together. So I get it. You're not new to resolving your emotional eating. You've tried all of the different things you could get your hands on. And that was my story as well. Honestly, I didn't know I was an emotional eater. I just felt I had no off switch with my hunger. And I tried to do all the different things around food, my body, around my emotions that I could get my hands on. And those were, a personal trainer. I went to see a nutritionist. I was in talk therapy, and it just felt like nothing was really getting into that root of my emotional eating specifically. Like I still felt out of control with food, with my body. Nothing really just gave me that aha. And that's when I threw everything out the window. I kind of shifted everything in my life. I changed jobs, changed countries. I had hit a really big rock bottom, and I thought if I changed everything in my life and flipped everything, that I would get some relief because I'd be a new person in a new place. But what happened was my emotional eating intensified, and I had to really look at the root of what was going on. And I didn't know where to start. So I started to try to understand my pattern. And what I found as I started implementing different pieces, I started to see my emotional eating resolve. And so usually when you are trying to figure out your emotional eating, you probably did what I did. You're trying to resolve it at the food level because that's what you see. So you're trying different diets, and then maybe you eventually intuitive eat, and you're judging, this should be the right way to eat because this is how normal people eat. So you're managing your eating on the surface. And then you feel out of control and you spiral and you kind of are like, I messed up like the perfect plan. And that is not hitting emotional eating at the root. You're still trying to control food, but you're not looking at the deeper root, which is under the surface. And you're still judging yourself and telling yourself this is how I should be eating without connecting to your body and not seeing where you're actually triggered into emotional eating. On a mindset level, maybe you are learning to view food more neutrally. You're trying to shift how you think about your body. You're trying to look at your triggers from a mindset level. Maybe you go deeper, you become more aware of your pattern. Maybe you start going to therapy, you start looking at your triggers, you start talking about them. So you have this awareness, and on a conscious level, you're trying to shift your pattern or shift your behavior because you see where you're triggered and now you're trying to switch it out. And usually the tactics around this are, if you have an urge to emotionally eat, let's say in the evening, be around people, go out. Or if you get an urge, go for a shower, go for a walk, journal. It prolongs the time before you feeling that urge and then overeating. It still doesn't feel like you have a handle on your pattern. It still comes up. It still feels like you're watching someone eat. It takes you over, and it might actually, you can hold off for a few days and it intensifies and you feel like, what just happened? I don't think I had a bad day. I don't know what's going on. You're not seeing the deeper pattern of what's happening. And so I talk a lot about getting to the root. I use somatic meditations with psychotherapy tools, but I've had clients go through somatic work and they have done trauma work and it still doesn't shift their emotional eating, because this is not about healing all of your trauma or what you think is the root of your pattern. It's about actually getting into the deeper roots of those specific triggers around this pattern. And so if you're working at just one of these levels that are given to you to look at your emotional eating, you're going to miss the actual pattern. And so it's not to say not to look at food or your body or your emotions or your awareness of your pattern. It's about looking at it in a more integrated way. So what I found with my own journey was a big missing piece was actually getting to the root of my emotional eating. And for me on my journey, I started to put different pieces together. So I looked at my pattern with food. I had awareness. I looked at my triggers, and then I took those triggers to find the root, to start resolving them in my body, to hear the messages of what are my missing needs and how do I give myself those emotional needs. So all of this had to do with my emotional eating. If I were to sit here and say, oh, all of the other patterns in my life completely dissolved, I would be lying, because they're all similar, but they're also specific. And for emotional eating, it can help improve other areas of your life because it can be tied to other things that are happening, but it's specific for your relationship to food and your body and how that feels. And so when you don't have all of these pieces together, it can feel like you're doing all of these things. The missing piece is really looking at this on all levels, holistically. Whether you feel like you can see your emotional eating pattern or you feel good in your body, when I'm working with clients, we're going through each of these layers to see where those triggers are, because our conscious mind wants to tell us, yeah, I'm eating really well, so I don't think it's really about the food, where you might be restricting yourself because it looks right on your plate. And you might say, I feel good in my body, I don't have any hangups, but when we actually start digging in and looking at it, you feel shame in your body, you feel shame about your body, you say critical things that are just under the surface, you don't hear it, and that's triggering you into your emotional eating. And then, of course, maybe you're dismissive of your emotions. You think it shouldn't be a big deal, you shouldn't feel this way, and you don't see how all of these little things are tied in. And that's why it's good to have someone look at your pattern, have an overview of your pattern to see when it's coming up, because you might think, oh, today I ate and I had an emotional eating episode, but it might have been happening from a few days before. And so you might not have that direct insight. That's why it's good to have someone to guide you through this. If I had me when I was going through this, which I tried to find someone to help me, going to therapy to see my patterns, no one ever sat me down and looked at my pattern. No one was looking at my behavior with food. It was just kind of, I went into a session, I talked about it, they thought they knew, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And so now when I'm working with clients, we're getting to their root, their specific root, and what's going on for them by observing it. It might look the same as one part is looking at how you're eating, and you might think, oh, I already do that because, I've tracked my food in the past, or you might not want to do that because you feel shame, like you think you're being judged. But that is something that we have to look at, your pattern. What we're seeing on the surface is your relationship to food, and we have to go deeper. Your triggers are not going to be as obvious to you, because if you feel like something's taking you over, you don't know why, you think you had a normal day, you're not seeing the deeper pattern under the surface. That is a nuance that you might be thinking, I should feel okay, whenever that should comes up. I have a client that we've been working on her pattern, and when we get into the deeper roots of her emotional eating, what's really coming up, the deeper, for instance, when we trace that trigger back to a deeper memory and emotion in her body, there's a part of her that comes up and says, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, and it dismisses it. And that's the same part in real life that comes in and dismisses how you're feeling and tells you to go to food to soothe. And we're directly working with that part so that you can honor your emotions, because emotions are important. You can honor your body's needs for rest. You can honor your body's needs for nourishment, because you're in touch with your body, not what you think you should be doing, but what your body actually needs. And that's a process, and it's something that should have been modeled to you and embodied in childhood. And so now, if you didn't learn that at a foundational level, you need guidance to move through what that feels like in your body. Because right now, your mind is in control and it's telling you all of the checklists of shoulds and keeping you in this pattern. You have to learn a new way that is connected to your body. And if you are operating, what I find is if you're operating out of your mind and you're dismissing yourself, even if you do embodiment practices, you need that deeper guidance. When I'm working with clients on a body level, when we are looking at their pattern, finding their triggers, going into the body, I'm using somatic meditations with psychotherapy tools. What does that mean? We're looking at where is this trigger coming from in the body on a sensation, emotional level? And what's the story? What are the different parts involved? And how do we transform them and integrate them so that you feel at ease around food and in your body, because you're no longer using food to soothe yourself. You're actually at this level meeting your deeper emotional needs with presence, with asking them what they need, with moving through that situation that came up and resolving it at a root level. We're resolving something that was unresolved that made you go to food to soothe. And that's part of the deeper work, but it's very specific to clients. And like I said, I've had clients do somatic work and have somatic therapists and all of this, but it is a certain combination of looking at the whole pattern that really resolves it. My clients say they follow the steps in the program, and it's almost like this transformational result. They can't pinpoint this one thing did it for me or this one thing. It starts accumulating and transforming their whole relationship to food and their body and how they feel. And they're no longer going to food to soothe, and then they can see what they actually need in that moment to resolve that urge to eat and to see the deeper pattern. And so how are we doing this? Inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program, we're moving through 3 main layers: true nourishment, body acceptance, and emotional wellness. They all play into each other to help resolve this pattern. And it's not that one piece is more important than the other. The deeper work, of course, is going to be more powerful to shift the pattern, but we need to be aware of how you are relating to food. Are you actually nourishing your body? Can you discern if you're triggered into emotional eating? Or are you truly hungry and restricting? And so we have to look at that, and it gives us a gateway into when you're triggered. Body acceptance is important as well. Are you trying to fit your body into a certain box because you think it should look that way, because that's what you think would give you love and acceptance at a deeper level? If you work out a certain way or you live a certain way, your body's going to reflect that. And if you're trying to force your body into a certain state to look a way you think it should look because you think that's who you are, we have to look deeper as to why. Why don't you accept yourself as you are right now? Especially if you have the emotional eating pattern and you're trying to stick yourself into a body, it's going to be one of those triggers to pull you back into your emotional eating. You're telling yourself, I'm not good enough as I am, and that triggers shame, and it'll trigger you into your emotional eating pattern. From here, we're looking at all of those different triggers, all those different places you might be pulled into emotional eating, and we're doing the deeper work on the body level, on the somatic level, with parts work and inner child work. And I'm also guiding clients through this process in an intuitive way, because I have done this so many times for myself, for clients. I can see the different pathways. And then from this, we can see your unique pattern and help you start meeting those needs and using some of the recorded meditations to go deeper into your own work. And so this is why my clients actually see change when they move through this process. They've done all the diets and programs and different therapists And still, if your emotional eating is not shifting, there's more to this, and you need to look at this pattern specifically with all the layers that are relative to it. And that's important, because if you keep trying to piecemeal different things, you're going to miss how they all connect together. So if you want more support with resolving your emotional eating, I want to invite you to find out more about the Emotional Eating Evolution Program. This is my 12-week container with the step-by-step process to resolve your emotional eating. There are one-to-one sessions with me to help you go deeper to see your pattern. And of course, there is support and guidance throughout this process. You get to see your pattern in a completely different way. And this is what gets you to ease and peace around food and in your body. So if you would like more support, I encourage you to find out more about the program below. And if you'd like a first step in this process, I also have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? In the guide, it'll help you start learning to discern true from emotional hunger and catching your triggers. So you can find the free guide below. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.